Was it a reflection of kind of what it turns out that what you went through in that period?
Yeah, in many ways. It also sums up a couple of years further back, but there's definitely some songs that are very personal to me, and that kind of the writing process acted as therapy right then and there in the moment. No doubt about that.
And then, well, you've been writing songs for a long time, but does that come easy to you to kind of bare your soul in that way?
No. The wanting to do it it comes very easy. I don't know if that's the right way of phrasing it, but it feels natural to do it, but that doesn't make it easy. Because it's like staring at yourself in the mirror for 24 hours a day. At some point, everybody gets ugly. So it's kind of, it can be kind of tough sometimes to constantly be looking inwards and you're constantly confronting yourself with your own issues.
Right.
But that's also what makes it so therapeutic, because you get to look at yourself from an outsider's perspective, and you solve some issues that way, I think.
What track on the record was for you maybe the most confrontational, or?
I think Tidal might have been it, because of what happened right then and there. It was literally, well, to put it in a simple way, bad news came, I wrote the song and dealt with my issue right then and there.
And well, the way you describe it, so it does very much help. It helps you kind of understand what happened and move on. And then I wrote this down as well. It's very honest, and you don't mind writing about your own insecurities and shortcomings. So have you had responses from people, maybe fans, coming up to you and kind of responding to what you've said?
Yeah, absolutely. But what I find very interesting is that rather than people trying to guess what it is that's actually going on in my head, they take the songs in and relate to them. They find their own issues or their own joy or grief within my lyrics, so they actually take ownership. And no one ever writes me and says, "I'm so sorry that you're having a hard time." You know, and the whole point, I think the whole point for me is that I'm not having that much of a hard time in my personal life, because I'm dealing with this shit through music, you know. But it's tough to create it, don't get me wrong, but it's, you know, I want to do that. But the messages I get are usually, this song means this to me, and this has happened in my life, and then I heard your song and it just all made sense, and that's amazing to me, that I'm able to write and help myself, and then people can put their own emotions into my words. I think that's fantastic.
And once you've written the song, and then I suppose the album has been done for quite a while, so is it then done with it, or every time you perform the song, does that emotion flow back?
Well, that's a different. It's not that the emotion takes over, but I certainly use it because being on stage, you have a responsibility as a performer to convey your message, not just through words, but also physically, you know. But I also find myself, you know, I might have written a song about one thing, but it might remind me about something else when I sing it tomorrow. So I also put new emotions into old lyrics that were written about one thing, you know. But it's just important to keep in mind that people need to be convinced when you're standing up there. You can't just stand there and tell them what you wrote. You have to really show them.
One thing I wrote down as well is a lot of the songs are kind of reflective of relationships and those kind of the emotions that deal with it. And so in that sense, are they very autobiographical? And do you have a specific person in mind when you write those songs?
Well, it's not that on this album there are mainly two people. But it's not that I sit down to write a song and go kind of, I'm going to write a song about this person now. Because for me, lyric quite often comes after melody.
Okay.
So I'll sit and I'll get it. I sometimes have a whole song with no words, but
Okay.
I get to like full structure with melodies, and I start on the production before I then get lyrics on it, and then allow the music to kind of sort of evoke emotions,
Right.
and somehow that then tells me where the lyrics are going to land.
So it's not per se a very conscious thing. It's just that it evokes certain words, and then later maybe you can make sense of it.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So finally, then, well, the album is called Cohere, and we mentioned the coherence of the album. So is that where the title comes from, or is it
What the song?
The album as well?
Well, the album is named after the song Cohere,
Right.
and Cohere as a song has existed for much longer than the rest of the songs on the album. It's been in my live set for a couple of years, but I've never really found a way to record it that I was pleased with. So on our last tour, knowing that I wanted Cohere to be on the album, and the album was nearly done, on our last tour in Holland, actually, I asked my sound engineer to start recording it every night. And then I picked the best take and then created a studio version from that. So I used the vocal take and the guitar from the live version. Part 3 we recreated in the studio, but part 1 and 2 is built on the recordings from, I think, Nijmegen. Is that what it's called?
Nijmegen,
yeah. So when that was then done, and I'd split it in 3 parts, it just made sense to name the album after a song that gives the album that coherence that you're talking about, seeing as that song is called Cohere.
Right.
Yeah, it was just, I like that it's a one-word title. I like that it's simple, and I feel that it makes a lot of sense.
I have one more very last question.
Sure.
Because what you mentioned is there a big difference for you between studio and playing live? Because you mentioned how Cohere kind of worked live, I suppose, then, but you had to find a way of doing it in the studio. So are those two very separate worlds for you?
They are and they aren't. Last year, I was on tour. I was touring a lot whilst making this album, so they very much blended in because the tour bus became a home studio for me. I was literally sitting there with headphones on trying to finish this album, you know. And then I also I call him my finisher. His name is Leggy Langdon. He's done additional production and has mixed the record. So he was sort of the final link in the whole process, other than mastering. So I would send productions to him where he would kind of sparkle put the last sparkle on it, and then once we were happy with that, he's amazing sonically and is a very brilliant creative mind, and then he's a brilliant mixer as well. So he would then, as someone who knows the songs well but still can look at it objectively, would then finish the mix and give it the width that it needed, you know. So I was really happy to make an album that actually was going through the same machine every time. But yeah, so they kind of blended in for me a little bit. But there is that thing of when you're on tour, you want to be at home writing because you're out here and you're getting inspired. You know?
Sure.
Can't wait to get home and write. But then when you're home and writing, you create these new ideas and then you want to go and play them. You know? And I also find that my songs I often end up finding things within the songs once I start rehearsing them, because you find different ways of playing them. Like Indivisible from the album, we play completely differently to what it is on the album. But it works. It's still the same song, and it's not like people wouldn't recognize it. But I like to surprise an audience, you know.
Sure.
I don't like going to shows where people just play the record, because I can listen to that at home.
So where's your mind now? Does your mind is now on wanting to write again?
I'm buzzing because I feel an urge to write, but I also know that I don't have to write for anything specific right now.
Right.
And that's really great, because then you don't feel that pressure to deliver anything to anyone, and you get to just set your mind free and just let it spill, you know.
Very good. Alex, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.